we weren't sure it was going to be worthwhile. We looked after the flood when we came back, when we were allowed back into town. We started our search to find a spot to put another Bonzer's. Of course, we also thought about, because of the extreme devastation in the community, we had to sit down as a family and decide, do we really want to stay here and rebuild amongst this, or do we just want to go somewhere and just leave? We had nothing to stay here for. I mean, our business was gone, our home was gone, so it would have been easy to leave. So yes, we decided to stay. We all love Grand Forks, and my wife and I, late at night, we knew the spirit of the town, the spirit of the people here, having lived here all our lives, that Grand Forks was going to come back. It was just a matter of time. But it was a scary moment for us. So we started looking around. We looked outside of downtown, we looked on the south end, the north, we looked all over town for a potential Bonzer spot. But we realized after going all over town, maybe 100, 200 times, I can't even, it's kind of a blur right now, but we knew that downtown was where we always had been, and it's the kind of, downtown's the kind of place where Bonzer's needs to be. If the city hadn't committed to rebuilding the downtown area, this wouldn't have worked. When we did open, the flood was in April, flood and fire were in April, and we were open by November. And we were the first ones back downtown. And so it was almost like being open. I told my wife the day we opened, I looked outside the front door and I said, this is like opening a little restaurant and bar in the middle of bombed out Beirut, because that's what our surroundings were. That's what we were. But there was still people down here. There were people that had to come down here to work during the day, and who wanted to come back at night and pretend that Grand Forks was what it was before the disaster. It's kind of progressed and rolled along pretty much the way we thought it would. But we never would have predicted that we'd have as many food and beverage outlets that we have now. It's become an entertainment district, and that's been great. I mean, that's been a pleasant surprise for us. Like a lot of the stockbrokers that were downtown before the flood, they never came back. They just went to the south end and never came back. So there were a lot of establishments, a lot of non-food and beverage type establishments that never came back after the flood that I thought would. I think we're going to have a lot more residential, and so the more residential we get, that's going to create the need for some retail. I think the next wave of residential development is going to necessitate the need for some sort of a grocery store / drugstore, because of all the people that live down here. So I guess I think the residential aspect of downtown is going to create the demand for some more diversified retail activity. I want downtown Grand Forks to be known as the entertainment capital of North Dakota. I think that's great for us. We don't want people to equate rowdy bars with downtown Grand Forks. We want it to be known as an entertainment center where there's restaurants and bars and lots of fun venues to go to. We don't want to overdo it. There's a good one. I mean, any good thing can be overdone. So let's not overdo a good thing. 3, it's pretty strange that your business burns down along with your bank and your accountant. So you pretty much lost everything. On top of the fact that all we recovered from the fire was 1 spoon. I mean, it was 100% loss between the flood and the fire. Bonzer's front door was right here. I'm standing in right about where Bonzer's front door was, and this was Bonzer's. So it went all the way back to the alley, and then we had a back entrance as well that opened right there onto the alley. So This is where it all started and ended. Well, it was after we had evacuated and we were told that we had after the National Guard knocked on our front door of our home and said we had to leave town. And of course, the whole town was underwater at that point. We held out to the end till we were ordered to leave. And I remember getting on the interstate and driving south, and about 10 miles south of Thompson, I looked over at my wife and I said, you know, all we need now is a fire. And by the time we got to Fargo and turned on the television set, the word had come through that a fire had started in downtown Grand Forks. I mean, we didn't realize that it had just ignited by that time. We didn't know that it was going, the embers and the flames and the ashes were going to blow over in our direction and actually burn our place down. But eventually, by the next day, we got up the next morning very early to watch the news again, and lo and behold, Bonzer's was on fire and all these other buildings were on fire. So it was, we knew we were in trouble with the water, but the fire was the real kick in the gut, you know, the one that really got us down. So it was a very depressing time. Yeah, my wife thought it'd be a good idea because our safe was in the basement of the below Bonzer's. So we thought, well, if we take the money upstairs and put it on top of the bar, the water's never going to get that high. We knew the flood was coming, but it wasn't going to get that high. And the water didn't get that high, actually. It got a little bit below the top of the bar. But we didn't realize that there was going to be a fire coming from the top, meeting the water. So we still lost any cash we had in the safe from the weekend deposit. The banks were closed, so we had nowhere. We were just trying to pick a safe place to put the money. I didn't want to leave it in the safe. I didn't want to take it home because I didn't want to throw it in the car and drive it to Fargo, or where we ended up eventually was Detroit Lakes. But so that was the ironic thing. Cindy thought she was really thinking by putting it up on the bar away from harm's way, not knowing that we never dreamed the fire was going to come from the top and get us that way.